Hi, I'm Lola Aneke. 27th of May is Children's Day. Therefore, I celebrate every Nigerian child, particularly children living with disabilities. In 2011, the World Health Organization reported that 2.5 out of the 2 million Nigerians are people living with disabilities, which account for 15% of our population in Nigeria. And these individuals living with disabilities include both adults and children. However, many of these individuals face a number of human rights abuses, which include stigma, violence, lack of access to basic health services, lack of access to education, lack of employment. We are thankful to President Muhammadu Buhari for signing into law the Prohibition of the Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Act in 2019. This is a very welcome idea, and we totally appreciate this kind gesture, Mr. President. We truly do. The disability community is grateful to you. Also, in 2003, the Child Rights Act was enacted. This Child Rights Act contains 280 pages long document. It's a 280 pages long document that contains 278 different issues, human rights issues that protect the right of a child. Okay, it talks about protection of a child from violence. It talks about the right to education for these children. It talks about the right to health care services, right to family life, right to dignity, and so many other rights. If we look at most of these acts, that is the acts, the Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Act and the Child Rights Act, we realize that we have things in place. We have a lot of promising and effective human rights issues in place to protect every individual with disability, including young children. But our problem is implementation. Okay? It's more like you build a house and you do not live in that house. Nobody's living in the house. This house will depreciate with time. Eventually the house will collapse. So, implementation of this beautiful, robust plan, but there's no implementation. Yes, the implementation of the prohibition against the discrimination against persons with disability, we've been told it will take effect after 5 years so that we can put structure in place, which is very good. How about the Child Rights Act? This has been in place for almost over 15 years now. How is that working for us as a nation? Like I said, implementation is a major problem. But how do we implement when there's lack of awareness or easy access to the information in these acts, to the general public, and even to the persons with disabilities themselves? I've spoken to quite a number of people living with disability and did not even know their rights as individuals with disabilities. There's lack of access to our law enforcement agencies. Look at our police officers or the police station, for example. How many of their buildings have access for individuals who have mobility issues, who will be needing a ramp to access the building? How many of our police officers can sign? Or how many police stations or how many people in the workforce are sign language interpreters, such that when the right of an individual with disability is being abused and this person walks up to the police station to report, will he be given audience? These are barriers that we need to look into so that these acts can be fully implemented. Okay? A study in 2008 by D.F.I.D., that's Department for International Development, revealed that there's a misconception about what disability is, or what they look at disability and the issue of disability as a welfare and a charity issue, which is not meant to be. It's meant to be a social inclusion, social adaptation inclusion, empowerment as advocated by the social model of disability. Even our law, our legal sector, I've had a parent say to me when he had an issue and he needed to speak to a lawyer, and he was surprised at the reaction of this legal person saying to him that usually it's a welfare and a charity issue. It is not. It's a violation of human rights issue, and it should be taken as such. Okay. Now I'll go to the points, the issues that really baffles me, and we all have work to do. I'm not pointing at any particular individual. The government, we as individuals, non-government organization, the society at large, we have work to do. Now let's look at the issue of the Child Rights Act that addresses the right to free, compulsory and universal primary education. How many of children without disability actually have access to free and compulsory and universal appropriate primary education? Talk more of children with disabilities. And the problem lies in the fact that there's no access to the building, there are no access to our school buildings, there are no access to the curriculum, there's no inclusive education curriculum. Teachers are not trained on how to practice inclusion. So when we're trying to solve a problem, we need to look at where the issue is so that we can address it appropriately and come up with an action plan that will be beneficial and that would boost what we're trying to achieve so that we can come to a successful end, an end that's beneficial to individuals with disabilities, as opposed to just having our acts and laws in place without ensuring that it works for the benefit of individuals with disability. How about the issue of protection from sexual abuse and exploitation under the Child Rights Act? We've had cases of children with disabilities being exploited sexually. Is it the case of the young boy at the school for the deaf and hard of hearing in Kuje, or the case of the young lady who was sexually abused at the school for the blind in Jabi? Imagine if everyone knew or knew about what is in our Disability Act, which is the Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Act, and also the Child Rights Act. I don't believe that exploitation would take place and it would be as rampant as it is right now. We have work to do. Our media houses have work to do. Everyone have work to do. Let's put this information out there so that everyone will be equipped. And by the time we're talking about proper implementation, we'll all be equipped with knowledge. I know we say that knowledge, ignorance is not an excuse under the law. But when we do not know how to access this information, then it's a big problem. How about the issue of employment, of the Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Act? It says that 5% of all public appointments must be allocated to persons with disabilities. I say, and I know that this should be extended to parents of individuals living with neurodevelopmental disabilities, because they are the one that take care of these children 24/7. And because they're doing that, they might have problems of employment because they might not be at work for some days, and any business person might not want to accept that, might not be as understanding to accept that. But when these parents are, if this is enacted as a law, that parents of children with neurodevelopmental disability should also have a quota in our employment sector, then we are talking about protecting the rights of individuals with disability holistically. I know that developed countries have something they call the disability allowance or something. How about we look into that as a nation? These are some points I would just like to throw out there and see how we all can work together as individuals, as a nation, as a government, and as non-governmental organization to ensure that people with disability rights are not being infringed upon. Thank you.